Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues, as tonight we bring you yet another inspiring story of innovation being pioneered by a young collective of people in the heart of Buntleng here in Gaborone. It is our guest's belief that Botswana, along with being a leader in terms of environmental conservation efforts, can and should be a pioneer in terms of sustainable lifestyles and livelihoods. In the unlikely area of Buntleng, right next to a popular drinking spot and an area that was associated with stabbings, child abductions, robberies and the like, a community park is being constructed that, through the innovative use of materials and technology, is set to bring life and opportunities in a myriad of ways. The Pula Sports Development Park will not only impart sports training and life skills to the youth, it will model aquaponics and green technology for the empowerment of the older members of the community. There are also lessons to be learned from the way it is being constructed. The use of permaculture, bio-toilets, solar power and a water collecting tank will allow for it to function completely off the grid, meaning no water and energy bills to impede the important work being done by the organization and community as a collective. The park will also provide a beautiful and safe environment for both young and old to enjoy, with sports and a playground for the children in the area, as well as Wi-Fi, a cafe and meeting areas for the adults. What better space to impart leadership skills and stimulate a culture of problem solving and innovation to youth with little or no resources? Skills and knowledge that will undoubtedly make them more competitive and contribute not only to the economic standing of the community in the future, but that of the entire country. And it is quite poetic that waste from industries such as the medical fraternity and retail is being reused for such a noble purpose. That bottles that littered the area as a result of alcoholic beverages, as well as the waste generated by hospitals treating the ill, being used for a structure that will promote health, wellness, and a positive outlook on life. I am 100% sure that all our viewers watching this evening will not only learn something new from the conversations we will have with some of the members behind this project, but that it will be something that can be put to practical use by people from all walks of life. So get comfortable and let's get to it.
I had a dream to actually develop a park like this for the kids, because adults, we have places where we entertain ourselves, but the kids in Buntleng after school, they go home or play in the streets. So I met up with Nathan, and then with time we grew up with a team with Swift and Sobukwe Mutobi. And then we came up with the idea of the futsal park, and then we incorporated with the playground. I had a dream because I was running up and down with the city council, explaining to them what I want to do. And one day I met up with Nathan by Raselebogo's, the tree next to Raselebogo's workshop. Raselebogo is the old man who fixes shoes. And I told him what I want to do. And it was actually a great thing because he actually had the same thing in mind. So we exchanged numbers and then we started working up together.
The whole idea came about just when we realized that there are all these green spaces available here in the city that weren't being used, and at the same time that there's a huge need throughout Botswana really for sort of spaces for children. Even though we have really great infrastructure in Botswana, that's one thing that we seem to be lacking. And we found children in places like Buntleng, they would literally be playing in ditches, and when they became a little bit older, they'd be going to the bars. And we thought it'd be good to be able to create an alternative for them.
Presently, we are all about strategic partnerships. Take as, for example, we're in a strategic partnership with King's Foundation and a lot of other entities. Now, the design or the model is to use sport to lure in young people and children. Moving forward, we're trying to team up with a number of different entities to offer them various programming, you know, sensitizing them on whether it's HIV and AIDS, whether it's about financial literacy, but packaged using sport as a pull factor. On this court that we're standing on, we'll be offering basketball, netball, and futsal. Futsal is five-a-side football played on a hard surface. And the beauty about those sports is that at the same time, we're basically killing two birds with one stone. You're developing sport and you're luring children into an area where then with strategic partnerships with, for example, FNB, could come and teach them on financial literacy in an environment that speaks to them, away from the classroom.
Once you got the idea and the team together, how difficult or easy was it to get the land, the financing, everything that we see here today?
Nothing worth doing is ever easy. I mean, we didn't shy away from the challenge, and you know, the bigger the dream, the more important the team. The team, I mean, we're 150% committed. I mean, this is volunteerism at its best, because it's not like they have been paid for this kind of project. The government played a huge role via the City Council by providing the land. And in turn, we knocked on a lot of doors. Some people call us professional beggars, but we knocked on a lot of private entities' doors and said, guys, come be a part of this great thing. Of course, we had a few challenges, like for example, not coming directly from Buntling and coming into Buntling to do work. You have those hurdles that you have to deal, or barriers to entry, for lack of a better word. But it was a very interesting case study. We used to leave all of our bricks and other stuff on site. And what happened was, previously they used to steal those things, until we engaged the community via the VDC and said, look, this is what we're trying to achieve. Please understand that it's yours, it belongs to you. From then on, if you notice when you came to site, there have been bricks on the outside. None of them get stolen ever. So it's very interesting. We've learnt a lot as we go, you know, project management, people skills, and managing various stakeholders. But all in all, it's been a good 3-year journey, and we're happy to say we're in our last phase of construction.
Welcome back to First Issues, as tonight we look at the pioneering work being modelled at the Bula Sports Development Park. We speak to John Macheng, Secretary of the Buntleng Ward Development Committee, as well as various members of the Bula Sports Development Association, to hear not only about the intricacies of the project, but also how it came about. Apparently, until they had gone door to door and gotten the support and buy-in from Buntleng residents, their efforts were often impeded by theft and vandalism. But after a sense of ownership had been accomplished, the construction has gone unimpeded for years, even in the times when the grounds did not have the security of a fence.
Our role in this project has been just facilitator. We facilitated here and there, but they are the key players, they are the developers. And as the Ward Development Committee, as the committee representing the community, we are very much excited about this project. Why? Because Buntleng, as you know, is underprivileged, underdeveloped. We don't have any recreational facilities. This will be the first of its kind. That's why we are so excited that we are going to have a place where at least kids will have time to go and recreate. The situation right now is that kids play in the streets. They don't have any place where they play, or others, they tend to now get involved in other unsavory activities, and we don't want that. As a former football player, I'm excited because we have that portion for football. These confined areas, what they do, they bring skill out of players, out of children. They develop their skills. Where they play in a confined area like the Fatsa. That is where you find both Messi, Rooney's and the likes. They played in confined areas. That would develop their skill. That's why I'm very, very much personally involved in this project and excited about it.
So at no point did you think
did you question these young men's intentions?
Their intentions, as we know it, is that they want to, once this one is functional and operational, they want to replicate this in other places, underprivileged places, and we should, as a people, promote this type of. It would be the first of its kind. We have some that are, but this one has many components. There would be places for kids to play. There will be after-school recreational places, you see. So it would be a first of its kind, and we want to ensure that it does function.
What I wanted for this park to be, it's actually more than it is right now. Because the first dream was just for the swings and the football field. That was it. We didn't actually have the sustainability of the park. Like, it should actually be self-sustainable. And I see the future children of Bonteng being more positive and more sports orientated, I'd say, and being future leaders. Let me just say that in short. But it was really slow because most companies really didn't actually get our dream. So we started doing, most of the things we started doing them manual labor. Like this kotla. This kotla is the first thing that we actually built. And the swings that you see, the steel swings that are around, we fixed them up for the kids, and then we went around asking for sponsors, asking for proposals for companies who actually could come help us. Most of them turned us down. But slowly, with patience and love for what we want to do, this year things started booming up and going up to where we actually want them to be.
We wanted the park to be able to show a model of sustainability and just to be basically autonomous. We wanted it to be able to be off the grid. And so a number of ways that we did that. The three main ways we would say would be through power, water, and sewage. And the ways that that's manifested specifically is the court itself is 670 square meters, and all rainwater that falls on the court is collected and drains into this 46,000 liter cistern. And we should be able to collect close to 300,000 liters a year on average from that. And so given that, we'll be able to use all the water just from the rain that happens here on site, rather than having to buy water for the site, for the vegetation that's going to happen in the gardens and around the site. In regards to the sewage is, we're not connected to the sewage lines. The toilets here are called bio-toilets, and we're using a model that was designed in France, built in South Africa, is made prevalent kind of in India and places like that. And basically what they do is it actually recycles the waste so that it's evaporated and recycled, and there's nothing that needs to go to be flushed, and so you don't have to waste water. And there's no smell, it's not gross, it's perfectly clean, but it also just doesn't waste water, and that's wonderful for us as well. And the last thing is going to be through using solar power here. And we've recognized that solar hasn't always been modeled perfectly well here in Botswana, but solar technology these days is fantastic. And so on this site we're going to be using some really good, some just very good solar technology to be able to show the court lighting at night and for around the park as well. We're going to be able to have electrical outlets. We're going to have USB ports so people can charge their phones here. There's going to be Wi-Fi. It's going to be a Wi-Fi hotspot that's going to be using the solar as well. And so that we're also trying to show, in Botswana, if we were using more solar, we wouldn't have to be relying on South Africa and other places for our electricity.
46,000 litre, I know I'm backtracking, a 46,000 litre water tank. I understand how it goes in, but how now do you get it out to the other facilities?
What the guys are doing right now is they're starting to construct a stand, and so on top of that stand we're going to be just putting a water tank, 2,500 liters, just enough to be able to have some water available at any time. And rather than using we're going to be using a pump, and rather than using an electrical pump, we're just going to be using an old-fashioned hand pump, because they're fun and they're easy, and if 10 years from now they break down, it'll just take a local welder to come in and fix it. It's part of our sustainability model. And by having that water available, that'll be for the sinks, that we have at the cafe and at the toilets, and that'll go into the gardens and the aquaponics, and it'll all come from that tank, which is going to be coming from this tank.
Why are these sustainable measures, how do they fit into your overall community development objectives? Why was it so important to model such green technologies?
I mean, for us, one of the things that we've wanted to be able to show is kind of encapsulated by an expression we've used before, which is what's in your hand. And it's just this idea of saying whatever you have available to you in life, no matter what your station is, there's something that you can do with that. And there's amazing things you can do with that. And so on this site, we're literally showing that if all you have is rubbish and a dry patch of land, you can still make the most out of that. And so we're building with a lot of things that would be considered rubbish, with cans, with tires, with bottles, with medical waste, with all these kinds of things, and saying, you know, we're building some very, I think, you know, nice looking and very functional things out of rubbish, essentially. We're not bringing water from elsewhere, even though it's one of the most drought-ridden parts of the country. All of the water is going to be right here, and we're going to be able to use that. And basically, the idea is just to show, no matter who you are, where you're from, what you think you have, you always can do something with what's available to you.
Thank you for staying with us as we continue to explore the innovations being implemented by the young people at Pula Sports Development Association.
We're learning from people who have done these things before. Outside of the country, there's a number of places where people are modeling these types of things. Where, I mean, using the tires to construct is based on the idea of earthship technology from people who have been building internationally using those kinds of methods. And cans and bottles, people have been doing that around the world for a number of years now. But here in Botswana, one of the amazing things has been our partner, Dynagy. They're based out of Notwane, and they've been doing this kind of work, and they've been trying to make this more prevalent here in Botswana as well. And based out of Notwane there, they've been doing this kind of building, and they've been trying to sort of develop the methods in a way that they can start to then expand and show other people how it's done. And they're very willing to be training and teaching other people how to do this, as well as to be doing more projects. And so it's not prevalent here yet, but we hope that it'll become that way and that people will really take hold of this.
One of the many methods for sustainable living being modeled at the park is a system of agricultural and social design principles called permaculture. The association has made sure to use the land on the site itself to trap the water and nutrients that wash across the sloping area that is Buntleng during the rainy season. Nathan tells us how.
These mounds, which are called swales, are dug according to the contours of the site. And so on this site, the water is going to be coming from that direction, sort of a northwest direction. Generally, when it rains, there's sort of streams of water that pass through here, and then they're just gone. What now begins to happen is, whenever it rains, they'll be caught up against the swales, the top sides of which have been dug down a little bit, and they'll soak and soak and soak. And the ground, instead of being super dry and hard as it is now, over the next months and years, you're going to see the ground is going to be retaining water, retaining nutrients that are washed down here, and minerals from upstream. And the entire site will be able to retain all of the water that comes down here and be able to become a richer kind of soil for the plants and all of the growth around the site.
You mentioned modeling aquaponics as well. Where would that be and how would that function?
So that's going to be coming in right in this corner. And the way that the aquaponics works is, aquaponics is a system of agriculture which is an almost closed system where you can maximize the benefit of what you're putting into it and trying to get more out. And what it basically is you have a tank and you have a vegetable garden. And what happens is basically the water cycles from your vegetable garden, and a lot of the times the way that we're going to model it here is the garden itself will be suspended above the tank. So we're just going to do a cubic meter one. The vegetables are suspended. They're actually just going to be in stones rather than in soil. And the water will be pumped from the tank and then through the vegetables, and then the excess water will go back into the tank. In the tank itself will be fish. And the fish start off as fingerlings, just very small fish. And what begins to happen, they grow and they produce waste, and there's algae on the water. You actually harvest the algae, and the algae is nutrient rich, and it goes back to the vegetables. The vegetables at the same time, the waste from the vegetables goes into compost. From the compost you harvest worms. The worms go to the fish grow, create more waste, and etc. And in that way you're using you're using minimal resources, but you're going to be able to come away with fresh fish and fresh vegetables right in the middle of Bontang.
We visited this construction site with grand ambitions a couple of times in the past few months, and you will be happy to know that it shall soon be operational and serving the community soon. To conclude, we hear what is next for the Bontang Futsal Park.
The good thing is on the 15th of October, we're hosting UNICEF for the 50 Minutes for Children campaign. Launch date late August, hopefully beginning of November. Tentative dates shall be announced on our Facebook page. However, obviously we want to have a spectacular launch. We're not trying, it's a spectacular site, so we want to launch it in style. So we're busy trying to see our avenues of how to get other sponsors and raise a few fundraising events that we can do to raise the money. Short to medium term, next year we are trying to do a football match. We are trying to adopt the Kabelano Trust model of using sport on a large scale to raise money for the association and for these projects. We're trying to do a golf day to raise funds for the projects, as well as to pay, volunteers and everybody who works there. Long term, my personal biggest dream as the chairman and one of the founders of this entity is to roll these out nationwide around Africa and Asia. But yeah, it's a colossal dream, but if we've come this far with such a good team, I believe it's very possible.
Gaborone City Council have also been very helpful. They have given this without qualms, without any much bureaucratic area. They gave us the space, and we have signed a contract with them for 5 years. We are very much happy that government has really facilitated, and ourselves we are involved as a community. Once there's ownership in the community, this will always function.
We cannot wait to read your comments based on tonight's episode. And now read out the winning text from last week's program based on the Bona Tatso project in Old Naledi. It comes from Ndibo7 in Francistown, who texted to say that he is overwhelmed by the founder of Bona Tatso, who is converting never do well into ever doing well, turning a non-entity into an entity, and that social entrepreneurship is a very good initiative because it allows people to express their ideas. Talk to us via YouTube, Twitter, and SMS. And do not forget to contribute to the growth of this program by participating in our Facebook poll. Until next week and another issue of interest, we bid you good night.